Welcome to a very important evening where we will be discussing our Mikdash Ta'at, our holy shul. Your being here indicates your interest and care for the well-being of the most important physical space in our community, the residents, so to speak, of the Shekhinah. Louder. Tonight we will hear from Rabbi Feldman and Michael Senker, our building trustee, who has been a hard-working shepherd, diligently managing the entire process for us.
Talking to the mic.
They will be talking about the history.
They can't hear the mic.
Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay. Unless we're talking insurance, then I'm used to talking balance. They will be talking about the history and background of the project. Michael will introduce Sandy Cooper of Cooper Collins Carusi, architectural firm, who will walk us through the proposals as they currently stand. We'll then have a chance to hear about and see a full-size functional prototype of the proposed mechitza, and you'll get a chance to examine it. On your seats, you will find comment cards. These are a very important part of tonight's meeting. They allow us to know what you are thinking about what we discussed tonight. We will not have enough time to process all the comments, opinions, and suggestions people have, so we are asking you to write them down and submit them to the design team. They will be posted on the Beth Jacob webpage, and each comment will receive a direct response from the team. We will have a 15-minute question and answer session at the end of our meeting, designed to provide information that may not have emerged from the presentation. So please write down your questions and we'll get to them. Suggestions, opinions, and ideas should be submitted by the use of the cards. As I now introduce Michael Senker. Michael, thank you again for your truly dedicated service to our show.
So I won't go over. Good evening. I'm both thrilled and privileged to stand here tonight and present this information for your review and consideration. It is an honor to serve in the shul in which I grew up and which has meant so much to 3 generations of Senkers. Here briefly is how we got to tonight. In spring of 2010, Eleanor Bogart was asked to chair a mechitza committee consisting of Sidney Rubin Lewis, Dana Rubin, Betsy Senker, Trudy Robbins, Fishel Paley, Judy Lippis, Rabbi Eli Kersner, Eric Edelman, and Jake Aronoff. David Mitchell, then president, and Rabbi Ilan were also heavily involved with this committee. That summer, architectural interviews were conducted, and Peter Hand, who was the architect for the Heritage Hall renovation, was selected, along with his new partners at Richard Richibi Hand, and design studies for the new mechitza were begun. Fast forward to May 4th of 2011. Peter Hand conducted a congregational meeting in which a number of you, including myself, were there. The purpose of which was to present concepts previously discussed and seek input from those present. The response overwhelmingly indicated that the congregation wanted more than a new mechitza. Poor acoustics, poor lighting, noise infiltration from the lobby, backaches from the sloped floor, and a reliable air conditioning system were but a few of the concerns raised. In June of 2011, the final meeting of the mechitza committee was held, with Peter Hand's firm charged to prepare a proposal for an expanded scope. Fast forward to January 2012, the present Sanctuary Renovation Steering Committee was formed, consisting of Rabbi Ilan, Jake Aronoff, and myself. Larry Grayson, our project manager, joined shortly after that. Additionally, a design advisory committee whose purpose has been to periodically review and comment on the developing design was formed, consisting of the members of the steering committee, in addition to Avram Litzman, Ben Hirsch, Chavi Lewis, Eleanor Bogart, Jody Wittenberg, Jonathan Klein, Rabbi Freimlich, Shimon Kamenetsky, Harvey Steele, and Judy Lippis. Judy has also recently chaired a subcommittee, including Betty Minsk and Raya Zalik, working with the design team on mechitza concepts. Martine Gershon has also anticipated, has provided valuable input from her event planning expertise, but I get ahead of myself. In May and June of 2012, initial concepts prepared by RWH were presented to the Design Advisory Committee and comments were noted. The steering committee continued working with RWH through that summer until it became apparent that without Peter Ham's direct involvement, he had turned most of the design efforts over to a talented architect within the firm, but inexperienced in synagogue design, that fresh ideas and leaderships from the design firm was needed. In fall of 2012, other architects were interviewed by the steering committee, and Collins Cooper Carusi was selected in early November. Sandy Cooper, who you will hear from shortly, hit the ground running, meeting with our committee almost continuously to develop and refine the conceptual design that was presented at the 12-12-12 celebration. This past year has been a whirlwind of design concepts, preliminary design, contractor selection, pricing, more design, more pricing, viewing other synagogues, particularly with regard to solving the functional side of the see-through, one side only, hear-through, reach-through mechitza, while all the while keeping in mind the original vision statement that, and I quote, "The main shul by its environment welcomes first and foremost the contemporary member into a place of tefillah and is warm and intimate," end quote. During this process of interactive design, not less than 30 meetings have been conducted between the steering committee, the contractor, and the architect, with upwards of 50 smaller meetings of smaller groups. As you will see, that has been a very worthwhile effort. The design effort has been a fluid process. It has expanded to address many issues other than the mechitza, as the membership made clear several years ago that there were many aspects of the shul interior that needed attention after 50 years. I would be remiss in not thanking all of the members who have served on all of these committees over the last several years, and in particular want to acknowledge and thank Eleanor Bogart for her early tireless leadership of the original Mechitza Committee. And Jake Aronov, who has been an excellent mentor and visionary throughout the design process. There are still important decisions to be made, such as the exact nature of the pews and other furnishings, the Aron Kodesh, the Shulchan, and adjustments to the Mechitza based on comments we've received and that you might make tonight. The design you will see is specific enough for you to know what is being proposed, and we welcome your feedback. Our goal is to begin renovations to the main shul before Pesach and to finish by Rosh Hashanah. For that to happen, several things, both within and outside our control, have to go well. Building permit issuance, contractor pricing review and negotiations, financial commitment from the membership, construction loan acquisition, and board approval. If we sense that the project will extend beyond Rosh Hashanah, we will give serious consideration to postponement till after the holidays. We are operating now with all cylinders wide open and moving forward. As Andy goes through his presentation, you may have questions. As Joey indicated, please jot them down, and we'll have a special section of the meeting allotted to answering those. We also want your thoughts and ideas, and in the interest of time, those should be written and submitted on your comment cards, which are on your seats, or posted to the website. A video of tonight's presentation will also be posted to the website so that those who could not join us tonight can also provide feedback. All comments, suggestions, and questions will be addressed. So without further ado, Sandy, please come up and share your vision with us.
My name is Sandy Cooper. I'm an architect here in Atlanta with Collins Cooper Carusi. I am one of many who have had the distinct pleasure of working with your team, with your leaders. Martha Bennett, who's sitting on the front row quietly, is really the one who's central to making this project happen. I just get to stand up and talk about it a little bit. So I have about 20-something slides that I'm going to take you through. And the intent of this is simply to show you where we are today, I think what we're about to show you is truly going to be a transformative design for your shul. If I can get there. Pardon me 1 second. November seems like so long ago since we were brought on board. When we were brought on board, this project, as Mike described, really was intended to be predominantly the design of a new mechitza. What this project evolved into is something substantially more, and something substantially more exciting, and certainly substantially more powerful. La Vista Road is on the left side of this screen. The sanctuary is the round form here. What you see in orange represents the spaces that we've been asked to renovate. Everything that's in purple, from the Coel to Heritage Hall, is remaining in its current condition. As we started to design this project, we had a very interesting conversation with the landscape architect who's familiar with your property and is familiar with your facility, as we are, and said something I think pretty profound. He said, you know, you walk onto your property largely, you walk on towards this building by foot predominantly, yet you walk through a parking lot into your front door and you're there. There is no recognition really of the sanctity of what this building could be. And what Spencer was talking about really was designing the site work and the landscaping so that it was befitting a worship space, and that it set this building off as opposed to something that's sitting in a parking lot. Think of this as a building that sits in a garden. Now that's perhaps nothing new to you, and maybe some of you think that you have that now. While the site work is still being developed, and we don't have a landscape design to show tonight, what we have done is really take that very simple idea to heart. So what we are proposing really is to recapture some space that you have at your front door right out in La Vista, and to create a landscape garden that every day that you walk into the front doors of your facility, you're walking through beautiful green space. It can be seasonal, it can be evergreens, it can be anything that it needs to be. It needs to be halakhically correct, I understand. I don't yet know what that means. But it will be designed properly, and we hope it will be designed beautifully. In order to accomplish that, we have suggested to Mike and Rabbi Feldman and Jake and Larry Grayson that we really look at perhaps what the canopy is at the front door and think of it differently. That instead of driving the car up underneath it, perhaps it becomes, the outer half of it becomes a trellis. The inner half, just as it is now, provides shelter from the elements, but that the car is no longer occupying some of the most important space on your property. That it's dedicated to you, it's dedicated to people who are walking to this facility to worship, to pray, instead of the rare times that you have to drive up underneath it. And that idea and that concept has resonated, and that's what's developing now. We are talking about a very modest moment in time in your parking lot. It may be that we change what's currently blacktop to a colored concrete simply to recognize the importance of arriving into your building. Again, this is work that's under design right now, but for a very simple idea, it's just a sequence of events that simply plays up the importance of simply coming to pray. The idea has always been, in some level, that this building needed to reach out to the landscape. That what is currently a very insulated sanctuary, in that when you're inside, you can't see outside at all. Well, that's not true. You can see through the diamond screen wall down low in the glass, but up high, because of the opaque arched windows, you can't see the trees, you can't see the clouds, you can't see the blue sky. So it seemed, again, like a simple concept. Well, perhaps we can start to infuse greenery and nature into the most sacred space in your building. So what we had proposed was that there be a concentric ring of hardscape walls, of landscape walls, that start to provide spaces on the inside of them for gardens to be viewed from the inside of your sanctuary. So that if you envision for a moment taking out the concrete block that has some of the colored glass in it down low in your sanctuary, and you replace it with clear windows, what you're then looking out onto is some garden space. This is your current sanctuary now. Your entry lobby, your entry vestibule. You have two lobbies. There's not a speck of seating in this anywhere. You have a nice window that looks out onto a landscaped area out here. You have doors that lead right into the sanctuary, and I understand they are fully open to allow ease of passage. The machitza is currently in this configuration, and the pews are angular constructs that sit on sloped floors, which I understand for many of you is physically painful simply to sit in the pew in that fashion for an extended period of time. What we're proposing is this. Everything that I showed you in orange is represented by color on the screen. So again, the entry canopy, the entry vestibule, which is remaining just as it is. We may paint the stucco, but we're not intending to change any of the terrazzo flooring. As you arrive into your building, we are proposing that you remove the brick piers and doors that separate the front part of your lobby from the back, and that you start to think of your lobby as one space instead of pieces and parts of two. We understood from your leadership committee that you would like to be able to walk into this and not feel like you're in the cloakroom immediately when you walk into your building. So we have taken note of that. We think that there's a way to bring daylight into the rear part of your lobby, and where that blue rectangle is situated on this slide, we're proposing that there be a skylight that sits immediately above that location. You have sound problems and acoustical problems and all kinds of maladies from 50 years of loving this place. And certainly you had, and it's a tired building. One of the improvements that we're proposing is that you put a sound lock on the doors that separate the lobby from the sanctuary. You will notice in the sanctuary itself that what is currently a sloped floor is intended to be leveled out flat, so there is no more physical pain of simply sitting on a pew and facing obliquely to the shulchan or the bima. We're rotating, we're reconfiguring the pews with new pews as shown in the blue here, so that they are radial, which by its general nature and form provides a more intimate setting and worship space simply by everybody being closer to the center. The bima remains in its current configuration. The shulchan remains at the center point of the sanctuary. The machitza takes on a far gentler form, as do all of the other pieces and parts that I will take you through in just a moment. So if you're looking at the lobby, as one would arrive into the building, there are these very gentle curvilinear forms that are wood-clad screen walls that simply shield the coats and hats and garments that are on the back side of it. What's shown in fuchsia are built-in bench seating that's part of this screen wall that has some depth to it, so you can actually approach it and sit sort of within it and be embraced by it. We are proposing that we increase the amount of storage capacity on the coat side of these screen walls. We are pulling these walls as close to the front as we can to still provide a convenient passage around the ends. But by pulling it close to the front, we're shielding sight lines from when you enter into the building. You can't see immediately what's behind. When we tighten up these pieces, there's not enough room simply for one entrance into these coat areas. So we propose that there be a second way in, which is through a portal through these screen walls, so that to get to this area and to this, you have 2 ways in and 2 ways out. I don't know if it's one-way traffic, y'all can decide. The skylight that I referred to is situated here. It's a 6-foot by 12-foot skylight. It will have sheetrock beams that run through the bottom of it, so light will be filtered. It allows us not to have to tear out any of the steel that's holding up the roof, but simply to expose it and then clad it with appropriate articulation, so that it too will be a very nice attribute to your new design. The stairs themselves, which at one point were part of conversation of relocating or not being relocated, it proved to be too expensive to move. We are looking to refinish the stairs, but we're not looking to change them. All of the carpeting, all of the spaces that I'm showing you in here will be recarpeted. The terrazzo and the vestibule, as I mentioned, will remain the same. The sound lock is simply defined by 2 pairs of doors on each side. So there's a 7-foot deep space that, when these doors are shut, simply provides a sound trap, much like a light trap does when you go to a theater. We are proposing that there be a stand for talit that's located where this light blue bar is. I failed to mention that as part of the screen wall design, there will be concealed bins so that when one enters into your building, they can go get a key pop that would be located in that vicinity, and a headdress for women. You will still be able to see out to the outside, so I'm hopeful and confident that the landscape design will be every bit as exciting as what I think the inside of this building will become. We are proposing in the light brown areas that there be bookshelves placed on the left and right side of the sound lock. I understand that you have some prayer books that infrequently are used. This may allow you to have some storage capacity without having to double stack or triple stack or even pull them out of the lower level. The ceiling in the lobby is a flat wood ceiling. I don't know if a halo is a right metaphor, but a halo. It would be good for me. The skylight, as you can see, is filtering light through that location, and we're simply proposing that there be a very simple homogeneous ceiling that's shown in white that runs on the periphery. All of the lighting will be replaced in the lobby. All of the heating and air will be replaced in the spaces that I've described. You will be able to tune this room any which way you prefer, just as you can in this room, for different family events or functions or pre-functions or however you like. The sanctuary itself, as I described, was always intended to remove the lower glass and the lower screen that provides solar protection from that glass in our original concepts. And the garden walls that I described earlier are simply represented in this diagram here, so that as one is standing inside the sanctuary, the important connection, the visual connection that is then made from the inside to the outside could be something as lovely as what I think this slide starts to convey. The sanctuary design itself again has the mechitza located here, the shulchan in the center. Women are going to stay and remain on the same side of the sanctuary as they are now. There have been, as you know, a number, all me, thank you. There have been a number of studies done that looked at putting the women on the north side of the sanctuary because of our concern about how the mahitza materials and design would perform. Thinking that northern light, which is less direct light, would be beneficial to having the mahitza perform as it needed to perform. What we're going to show you in just a little bit negates that need, so women can certainly remain where they are. As one enters into the sanctuary, there is a series of wooden cabinetry that's shown in the brown. The ones in the center are taller than the ones on the sides. The ones on the sides are roughly 3 or 3.5 feet tall. You can walk behind them to get to your seat. You can look over them to see into the sanctuary. On the back side, meaning the window side of these low pieces, there is 2 levels of bookshelving so that you can put your prayer books and other books in that vicinity. We have also designed, based on a recent meeting that we had with the Design Advisory Committee, we have picked up additional storage space and bookshelves that are part of the taller entry pieces. And this millwork and these taller bookcases, which right now are about 6.5 feet tall, are simply intended to play up the importance and the drama of actually entering into the sanctuary. It is lions at the gate, if you will. They are not intended to be aggressive. In fact, you can see by their form that they're intended to be just the opposite of that. Rabbi Feldman talked to us about designing the shulchan in a way such that there is still one step up to the table in the center. That historically, synagogue design had an enclosure or a corral, if you will, that distinguishes that space from the spaces that are on the outside of that. And we are pursuing that right now. We don't yet know what that piece looks like, but we have made accommodations spatially for that to take place. So that when the Torah is being dressed and undressed, men will sit on this side, be handed the scrolls, and then the vestments of the Torah will take place there. You can see again the theme that we have introduced into this design, and that is that we're not looking to repeat and replicate the angular nature of your sanctuary. I think your sanctuary is a beautiful, truly beautiful space. The parts that I like the least about it are the angular pieces, both at the bulkhead, the sheetrock soffit that wraps around where all the air is blowing out of, as well as the form and feel of the mahitza, which is also in its current condition, feeling more like a divider wall than it does something that could benefit both men and women. In order to arrive up the bima, there are stairs that run to the left and the right of a reading table that's at the front. The ark itself is what's shown in purple. The chairs, rabbi's chairs, are up in the front just as they are now. There is a palette of woodwork that we are using here that, as you can see by the form of this and by the form of the bima, and as it is brought out into the lobby, really is intended to be one design. It's not intended to be, well, this is the lobby design, this is the sanctuary design. This is intended to be one thing, one flavor, and I think that we've achieved that. Currently, your pews are spaced from the back of one pew to the back of another at 34 inches. It doesn't meet code. It provides for very tight passage, as you know, getting into the center of these pews. Part of the conversation that we had very early on when we were talking about new pew layout is to space the pews, is to more widely space the pews. And right now, the layout that we're showing is 42 inches apart, front to front or back to back. We do not yet know, and you'll have to excuse me, I don't know, again, the correct term for the where people put their prayer books on the back side of the pew, but there's conversations going on right now to make sure that the passage is at least wide enough to accommodate people coming and going out of the pew, even when those are installed. The upper chamber of the sanctuary is this area here. Everything that's on the periphery is the low space, as you know. If you were looking on the underside of the low space, what you have now is the stained wood tongue and groove decking that we're intending to keep. We are replacing all of the lighting, I hope you don't mind, in its entirety. But we are also proposing that what's shown in these dark squares, that there be some wooden panels that simply hover slightly below the wood deck and are tilted so that the back side, the outside, is the lowest point and the inside is the upper point, so that it's tilted like this. And it provides acoustical benefit to those that are seated in the low areas. These light fixtures that we're proposing are LED fixtures. They happen to be on tracks. We are looking to install them in the exact same locations as your current lights for a whole variety of detail that you don't want to know. We just have to accomplish it in that fashion. So this is both floor plan on the left and reflected ceiling plan on the right, showing, without showing the upper part of the sanctuary. You can generally see the nature of these improvements in their entirety. Acoustics have been a huge part of this conversation. We understand that it's very difficult for people to hear, really regardless of where you're sitting in the sanctuary. What started out as a technique to try and solve sunlight and sun rays coming into the sanctuary really morphed into an acoustical band shell, more so than a way to filter light coming in. What's shown in red represents a series of wood bands that are 5 inches by 5 inches by 25 feet, probably 18 feet long, that occur at roughly 18 inches vertically. So they're a series of bands that run up the inside of the arch columns that you have. And by that very nature, plus some other features that I'll take you through in just a moment, we're able to enhance the acoustics of your room. We have an acoustical engineer that has studied this. A lot of the line work that you see in this drawing is simply a part of that study in terms of how sound energy travels. The bands that I described are more clearly understood in this image. The wood stripes that I'm showing you in this model are in part acoustical benefit, but it's also intended to house art glass that is shown in the colored glass here that simply provides, well, to me, a thing of beauty for your sanctuary. The arched windows that you have now are 50 years old. They don't make them anymore. You don't want them installed anymore. We have found a comparable product, but it doesn't have the colorizing effect that you have now. So part of our design, a very important part of this design, which I really am, I mean, I have to tell you that, first of all, designing worship space is a treat. It really is a privilege. To come up with an idea that I really think is going to be just a phenomenal design, not in look but in feel, is represented here. What you have right now are arched windows that have a porcelain medallion that simply articulate and describe each of the 12 tribes of Israel. We are talking about either doing that in colored glass, an artist, as Mike described, which has not been selected yet, or we're talking about having 12 bands of glass that sit on top of the wood that allow for a continuum that describes and informs the 12 tribes, as opposed to having a more static 12 windows represented by each of its own imagery. I wouldn't pay any attention to the colored glass here. This is nothing more than to convey a concept to your team, not to suggest this is what the glass would look like. but it does show very clearly the height at which the glass would rise. It will remain lower so that you never lose sight of the arched windows or the beauty of the upper part of your sanctuary. But it does, as it starts to climb up higher on these columns, it starts to follow the curvature of the columns so that it starts to embrace really those of us that are sitting below it. Another key feature to the acoustical performance is to redesign the bulkhead such that we're replacing what's there in its entirety. We're keeping the air conditioning duct that's hidden inside of it. But we're looking to put a wooden panel that's tilted 10 degrees inward. Again, nothing more than acoustical gain. This is a collage that starts to show how these pieces start to come together. Now, the renderer that we hired to do this is Filipino, and he is in the Philippines right now tending to his family. So the arc and the design of the arc has not been updated, but rather it shows the exact same design that you have in your sanctuary now. The mahitza that we'll get to in just a moment, again, is simulated in this artistic rendering on how it might fit and feel within your space. You can start to see how the curvature of the pews and the spaciousness of the pews start to manifest themselves. I just think it's going to be lovely, truly. The design of the ark, which, let me go back one. The design of the ark right now, again, I may be in the minority here, but the design of the ark right now was not the original ark design from the original 1960s design. I don't know at what point it was changed, but it needs to change as this design goes forward. And what we are working intently on, and have come up with this sketch, is how to integrate this new wooden panel bulkhead with the design of the ark so that this fits and interlocks one with the other, and that it doesn't stand proud like this one does, even in your current sanctuary. The eternal light, the menorahs, the reading table, chairs, well, you can connect the dots. And while our renderer is in the Philippines, we have tried to take a crack at how you start to integrate the new design with everything else that this artist has drawn. And this is the closest this evening that we have to show you really what the composite looks like and what it will feel like. There has been a lighting designer that we have had on our team for several months who has done an extraordinary job so that we can tune this room to take care of all of your worship and life experience needs that you'll have in this space. And what he has done, I think, is genius. So the lighting that you have on, in your current sanctuary now are these high-pressure lights that sit up high. Again, because all of the conduit and electrical feed service that feeds these light fixtures happen within the wood ceiling itself, we don't have the luxury of putting lights anywhere we want them. So what he has come up with is a way to introduce new LED lighting in the exact same locations, but it affords us just an unbelievable benefit in how we can start to light the room. So this slide shows an earlier rendition of the mahitza, but I'm using it simply for lighting purposes only. You can start to see how these light fixtures that we have right now in the cost of this project really starts to enhance the structure and the beauty of what your sanctuary certainly carries with it and dignity. And then at full power, how we can light up the art glass and really start to perhaps tell a story. And then how that might look from La Vista Road. So you can see that this has really transformative qualities to it. It was incumbent upon us. In fact, we were compelled by Rabbi Feldman and everybody else that whatever we came up with, it had to hold on to the warmth of what you have now. And I'm pleased to say I think that we've done that in some. Rabbi Feldman. Well, I can't say anything any more eloquent than what Rabbi Feldman just said. It's why we were brought on board. It was the single most important design feature when your team talked to us. I think that we've come up with something really exciting. In fact, I'm amazed that it works. We have been looking for magic glass. We have looked on every corner of the earth for this product, and we can't find it, and we couldn't find it. But Lord knows we tried. We tried to figure out how to reach through glass, how to hear through glass, how to look through glass, but not look through glass or be seen through glass. At what height should it be installed? How high? How low? It needs to move. It doesn't need to move. I mean, we have been back and forth with your team, fully vetting what this design needs to be. The mock-up that Rabbi Feldman mentioned is up underneath this cloth that we'll let you look at in just a moment. But in its essence, it's a very soothing, calm, curvilinear form that doesn't slice through the sanctuary in quite the same way that your mechitza does now. When we showed up at the very beginning and we saw air conditioning filter attached to the top part of the mechitza, I said, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. Little did I know. I know that it's not important tonight for me to backtrack all of the pathways and trails that we have been on, but one thing that we have done is to try and hold on to the importance of nature in the design of this, in the renovations. And though the character of the mechitza is anything literally symbolic of that, you can start to see perhaps in your own mind how the wind blows, or how the waves roll, or how the grass bends, really out in the wide open. The mechitza itself is a 60-something foot long piece of sculpture. It was purposefully intended and designed not to be a divider, but really to try and have a strong, important presence without being overbearing. We knew that it needed to be grounded, so we have designed a stained wood base upon which metal and wood sits. We have studied with everybody imaginable ways to light this so that we can functionally achieve what we needed to achieve, what we were asked to design and to solve. We couldn't do it with glass, so we came up with a metal mesh that perhaps some of you have seen in other shuls, but I hope you haven't seen the mesh that we're proposing. What is shown in the dark line represents a very thin, painted steel frame, and you'll see a full-size sample of what that looks like in a moment. The metal mesh, again, is conveyed in this fabric that this slide shows. And at the time, we were thinking that there would be, as represented by this red curvilinear line, a piece of glass that sits down low directly on the wood base that would simply shield a light fixture that slides recessed into a light trough that's sunk into the wood base. Everything that I've described is in fact true, but we have simplified this such that the glass itself is no longer curvilinear but flat. Everything else is as I've described. This is really the last slide I had this evening, and it's almost impossible to convey really what I think will be the beauty of this space. When you see how the light hits this metal mesh, I think you too perhaps will be intrigued that it's something certainly more than you have now. It achieves all of the functional components that Rabbi Feldman described. It allows women not to have unfiltered sight lines to a service, but the best that we have found that we can achieve. It allows for sound to transmit through this mechitza in a way that glass or wood cannot. It allows for women to be able to reach through when the Torah is passing by. And again, it's intended to convey a sense of artistry and sculpture within the total environment. The mock-up is shy on several counts. Its height is a little bit too big. Its steel frame is a little bit too dark. There is not the scripture and jewelry that Rabbi Feldman is looking for. There is a whole layer of beauty that perhaps it's the sculptor who comes on board on our team and not we as architects are trying to design. But it's really intended to give meaning, really important, fundamental meaning to your worship space. We are that close to hitting a home run. The bases are loaded right now. We need a few strikes, but we're really, really close. So really, without me sort of babbling on anymore, I think Larry's going to start to show you. And I'm not sure, Rabbi, how you want to do this, but I know you want folks to be able to walk up to it and look through it.
Yeah, just one other point here, right? The material that the architect was able to order is silver colored, and it's actually expected that we're going to be going with a bronze color for the metal mesh. But what's that?
Bring it up here.
Well, it can't move. It's quite heavy. We have it on casters when we need to move it around. But we're going to adjourn, so to speak, let everybody have a chance to mill around for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so. Get a chance to sit in the chairs, look at the different sides, examine it, and then we'll come back and we'll have a question and answer period.
Make sure that you be cautious with the cords. Don't trip over the cords if you want to.
If you heard that, make sure not to trip on the cords that are supplying the electricity for which people light on the men's side.
Just one bit of information. The side that the light fixture is on is the side that the men sit on, the women on the other. Inside the steel frame right now, there are 3 different metal mesh fabrics. The one that is closest to us is the one that everybody prefers. But again, because of the constraints of time, what's shown in the frame closest to us right now is stainless steel. It's intended to be bronze, so its warmth changes, its color changes, the way that light reflects and radiates off of it changes. And then the glass. Excuse me just one second. If you decide to approach this, the plexiglass that's on the mock-up is just plexiglass. It's just a placeholder.
Now, an experiment for yourself.
We're intending to have a piece of decorative colored glass. We don't yet know the color, but it will go where the plexiglass currently is.
Sure.
It's going to look at the
No, they have a date. As soon as the save it, we have a save the date has come out, you can't see.
Okay. Where's that noise coming
The
from?
wireless mic on the other guy.
Who's got the wireless mic on and why? Sandy? Is Sandy here or is Sandy?
He's there.
Are you wearing the wireless mic? Oh, good, thank you. All right, now comes the most difficult part of the program, okay? We've got about 15 minutes, really, we're running a little late, but that's okay. We've got about 15 minutes. We want to make sure that you have a chance to ask questions. Now, let me define question. Question means that you want to know the answer. That's number one. Number two is it's information that you want. We can't possibly handle a comment, assessment, opinion, suggestion, I hope, I wish kind of a session here. It's not going to work. At the membership meeting back in December, we had a slide for 20 minutes just to update the membership about where we were, and it was just everybody's interested, and everybody's got great stuff. That's what the comment sheets are for. The comment sheets are going to be read word for word. We're going to post everybody's comment because we want you to be heard like everybody else. We're going to be dealing seriously with everything that everybody says, and we may or may not implement, we may or may not be able to, or we may have other ideas, or maybe reasons we can't. And you are the users of the show, you're the owners of the show, and what you say is very important. So please, opinions, hooray, ugh, horrible, disgusting, you're running roughshod over us, anything like that goes on the comment card. Questions are what we're looking for right now, okay? So that's how we're going to run this now. Okay, how do I do this? I'm going to start going from the front to the back. You know what, from the back to the front, because the back people never get a chance. Okay, so let's go to the back. Yes, Sandra, I think that was you.
My understanding was that the seats were going to face east, and these configurations don't look like it. And how many seats are you actually losing?
So, please, Sandy and Larry and Jake, anybody. My understanding is right now, and this for the 20. Oh, thank you. How many seats are we losing? And the diagram doesn't look like we're facing east. So, A, we're retaining the round sense, the community sense in the seating, and they're oriented more to the Aron Kodesh than the original seating, which was horseshoe. But it will still have a sense of the community inclusiveness. That's why it's not totally facing Israel. In terms of the numbers of seats, I think we're going, Michael, I'll let you answer that. Sandy's going to answer that.
Head for numbers. Everybody knows I have no head for numbers.
New seats are 350.
So the new seat total is going to be 350.
350, and we think that you have about 425 now on paper.
So we're losing 75. And we have the ability, we still have the ability to supplement the seating in the show the way we do now when we anticipate larger crowds. We also, in the deliberations, I've made the following point. We have a show where we have 5 minyanim going on regular Shabbos. So we're not packing people into one sanctuary, we're packing them into a big building. So there are a few occasions where we do need more than the seating of 350, and we'll deal with it. That's more than I really intended to say, because I didn't answer the question directly. Yes, moving from front to back. Let's see, I see it that way. Okay, Alan, please.
How much do you expect this will cost, and how much it will raise?
Very good. We're looking at 3 million plus. That's after a significant amount of review and cost cutting. Right now we've got hardcore commitments, besides the cash that we already have in hand, hardcore commitments of something about $800,000. 880. And that's in addition to cash on hand. That was about 425. So 880 in commitments, 425 cash on hand, and a budget over $3 million. I've done the math. I've assessed everybody here, and God and I together have decided that this show can afford, very well, can afford this thing. We're going to be doing pledges of the, we're going to talk about that in a minute. There's no solicitation tonight, but we will be talking about that in a little bit. Going from, let's see, Marcia, yes.
Okay, about the noise level. If the doors are open, how does the double door help with the noise level? Because the doors are open. And we're now making one large lobby, which sounds wonderful, but where do we put the people who still want to talk?
You want to address that, Sandy?
Sure.
Or Michael?
So, Marcia, the purpose of the double set of doors is that when someone goes through the outer set, that door closes behind them, and then they go through the inner set. The only time those entry doors into the sanctuary would be open all the time would be as we're exiting the show.
All right, and then what about the noise level of a door shutting? Because right now the doors make a lot of noise when they open and shut.
Those will be modern doors. They won't be 50-year-old doors. They will be seated in frames that have thresholds that you won't hear them other than a swish when they close.
Thank you in part 2.
Do we allow this? No, go ahead.
That $3 million.
Yeah.
Does that include the greenery, which looks like it's an integral part of the plans and be very nice to look at? So does that include it as well as the upkeep?
We have an allowance for that. Excuse me. Upkeep is a different, that's a maintenance thing that we're going to be addressing as a synagogue. But we have a line item allowance, if you will, within that budget for the landscape, hardscape portion.
And I know you don't want any comments, but this was terrific. It looks good.
We can't accept order. Can't accept that. Those are allowed.
I just want to see if I keep with this. Yes, Jean.
2 questions. With the redesign of the front, are we going to lose parking? No?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And then the other question...
We're not allowed to.
Okay, go ahead. And then my other question is, was a ramp up to the ark considered, and would it be important? People who don't have mobility.
I can take that. So the question was a ramp up to the ark considered, right? It was considered, it was put in the design, we took it out because of the cost, okay? And we're going to try to make some other temporary arrangements for when that is needed, that we can actually create a ramp there for somebody. And we'll figure something out in the design. Yeah, but the cost was prohibitive. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to add that may not have been apparent is that with raising the floor so that it is flat, with the beamers staying at the same relative level, instead of having a 6 or 7 steps going up, it will now be 2 or 3. So it will be a much shorter walk and much shorter for a temporary kind of convenience.
I'm going to go to this side, and then we'll come back there. Anybody over here? I see no hands up. Right back here, please, Davida.
Will there still be any covered place where you can pull in to drop someone off? I know that when you were first talking about redesigning the back, that was going to be the drop-off place. I don't see anything there now. Second question, the glass windows on the lower level, totally transparent, shaded in any way, darkened? What's the visibility going to be?
On the canopy in the back that you were referring to, that's part of the cost-cutting process. That's gone. And so it won't be there. It's not projected. And the glass right now on the bottom parameter of the synagogue is going to be transparent. There'll be a screen behind the nature note, the term that I use. There'll be a screen behind it to make sure that we don't have the inappropriate access to what's going outside or outside into inside.
But will there be any place to drop off people now that's covered?
In the back?
In front?
Anywhere.
Yeah, let's address that. Who wants to address that precisely? Sandy, you want to take that?
Right now, the plans do not provide for covered drop-off on the front of the building. As Larry mentioned, I think, there have been plans to put a covered canopy on the backside. It has always been tethered to the landscape scope of this project, more so than the interior renovations. How that plays out, I think only time will tell. It is not possible, well, it is possible to do an extension onto the canopy that you have now. It is wildly expensive to do so. And what that starts to look like, the only thing that we could come up with that really was the least bit palatable was trying to put a glass, a cantilevered canopy, almost like an eyebrow, that cantilevered out towards your parking lot, because we really want to recapture and repurpose the land that's up underneath your canopy now. So we can't keep it as a driveway and provide it as a garden at the same time. The best chance, I think, is to consider putting one on the backside of your building at the right time.
It's Alan, this side. Yours farthest back on the left side, yes.
So if you have a mechitza where the women can see but the men can't see the women, why wouldn't you just keep the existing circular seats with the existing pews the way they are, save a bunch of money, and take care of the fact that men won't be able to see the women?
It's a reasonable question. It's a design concept as well. There have been a lot of observations from the membership about the fact that the seats naturally orient you in the wrong direction for davening. So when you stand up, you have to turn sideways from your seat in certain places. So we're trying to retain the sense of community while at the same time orienting more to the east. But there's no absolute reason compelling or forcing it. Even with this mechitza, by the way, there's still going to be some vulnerabilities in terms of sight. So
how much money would you save if you did what I just proposed?
Good question. Good question. Let's look at it. Good question. Please put that down on the card to make sure we deal with it. Yes.
And say quickly, and this is obvious, if we did that, we don't solve for a lot of the problems that the congregation indicated were concerning to them. So you still have people who are standing with one leg up and one leg down when they face east, right? You don't do anything about the sound problem that we've had for a long time. You still have an older building that just doesn't have the finish and quality that you had 50 years ago that I think you're going to have now for the next 50 years. So there's also some thinking that a building that's been around for 50 years just needs to be upgraded enough that it can go for another 50 years and look right over that period of time. So it's a good functional question. You know, there's no question that you could do a lot less and still put a mechitza in it, but you have the kind of environment that will serve well for, you know, for the future.
Good. Let's see. Okay, Joel, please.
Could you please explain your thinking process about balance point between arena seating, i.e. the step thing, where the sight lines it would seem like the way they do movie theaters to be more direct in your decision to go flat and with raised levels and how you thought that all through.
Truth is, I want to avoid that because there is obviously every single question here has represented hours of deliberation and talk, and you're entitled to know that. The problem is, it's going to take a while just to answer that question. I want to stay away from questions that are non-informational. This is the proposal. Every proposal here has reason behind it and could have gone another way, and it wouldn't be wrong. And this is the proposal. So I'm not answering the question right now.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I think you can answer part of that, his and Ms. Lotus's question at the same time too, because what I think a lot of people don't realize is the way it was with this arena seating. Part of the problem was men at the back, no matter almost how high you're going to make that pizza, can look over and see women at the back, and that was a major problem. So if you don't do the leveling, I know it's costly, you're still going to have that problem.
Good, and that we can't, thank you, we can't have the kind of question and answer from one person to another who will be here all night. Any other questions? Yes, Alan.
With this design of this pizza, is that going to be movable?
Right now, so we're just in serious discussion about removing the frame which houses the mesh, so that for weddings there'll be no obstruction whatsoever. Yeah, that's what we're talking about now. Yes, Larry.
Yeah, it's one of the things we're looking at is for possibly maybe the first 5 sections to be able to remove the screen mesh, right? The problem with that is that we've got to deal with the structural integrity of the screen at the same time. We don't want to create a nightmare where something starts wobbling and goes out of integrity. So it's a serious design issue, but we are looking at it. Okay.
Yes, Edie.
I think there's a little misunderstanding as to exactly what the pizza would look like because of the design up there. I think this is just to show us what the panels are like. If everyone's thinking, people I was speaking to, that the pizza's going to go up and down like this and have the juts cut out. So, and also there's 3 screen panel designs. People didn't realize that either. I just wanted to bring that up, and maybe you can explain a little more what the top would look like and the design, so because people think have a misconception.
Got it. So thank you. Yeah, the panels of the final mechitza will be much wider from one end of the panel to another. The gaps that you see there are there for demonstration for the ability to have a gap. We will not have that many gaps in the mechitza at all. We'll have enough, but not that many, not that regular. And we're going to choose one kind of mesh and not have 3 or 2.
There's 3 types.
Yeah, there are 3 types, and we're going to choose one. Yes. And there's still quite a bit of experimentation to go. Thank you.
Oh, I could add one other thing. The metal frame that you see, really what this is just a demonstration that it works. That if you're on one side, you can see through it, and from the other side, you can't. The material, while it will be similar, we're going to choose one of those mesh types, or maybe a combination. Sandy, you talked at one point about some part of it that will be in one form, another that will be another form of mesh. So we're going to try to do something that's aesthetically right and also impermeable for the men, from one side, and able to be seen through completely, completely as that mesh allows from the other side. The frame itself is not going to be black, it's going to be a bronze color. The wood is going to be selected, and the element of the wood, the proportion of the wood in relation to what comes above, will change. The glass, where you see the plastic sort of feature, is going to be colored and will be a design element along the lines of what Sandy and I think Rabbi Feldman talked about. So there are many of those aesthetic elements that are going to change. So what you're seeing is not the final aesthetic rendering of what will be in place. It just proves that that design works and it accomplishes what we think is needed from the standpoint of men and women. Is that clear? The space of these various members will change. So these vertical elements could change up some, and Sandy's going to perfect that to make it look just right.
People think that that's the actual design. A big panel, a narrow panel, a little opening, a big. That's what I want to explain to people, and because people I was talking to thought that was the design and the height and everything, and they didn't understand also that there were 3 choices of mesh there. So rather than 2.
So now it's clear.
He said that the middle panel wasn't a choice. No, the middle panel is a choice, right?
Well, I think you said to me the middle panel was
The
not a
middle
choice.
panel is not what we're going to have, Sandy, unless it's superimposed or just partial.
The way that our last conversation was left, that there would be two mesh fabrics used. The one that's in the middle, the narrowest panel, would remain in the middle, and the fabric that's closest to each of us, though it would be in a bronze color, is the weave that we're looking to use over the rest of the 60 feet. So the narrow panels, there are 5 passageways for women to reach through. I don't know, that's 8 or 9 feet apart maybe, along the length of a 60-something foot long pizza. Everything else, except for those passage points and the mesh that is below those passageways, is all one mesh of one color mesh.
But Sandy, as I understand it, the ultimate test is what works in place. So we're going to look at it from every angle. If one of those meshes, Rabbi, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't do the job functionally, then it'll change to the mesh that will work. So we want it to look good and be beautiful, and I think it will, but it has to work functionally. Is that clear?
So now you're saying that the choice is the 2 panels,
Edie,
with the middle one will always be
Edie,
there?
enough on this topic. We're not going to discuss it in public anymore.
Like it if we don't know what's in the
Got it. We understand. Whatever lack of clarity there is, the design team will deal with. Fega.
First of all, it was presented really beautifully, and I'm excited about all the changes. While I'm more concerned about aesthetic things usually, I have actually a more internal question. I don't know if this is your field, but I didn't really hear anyone talk about the ventilation system, and I just noticed one thing over there, standing by that mock mechitza, the heat that was coming off of just that little lighting was a lot, and it was only on for maybe like 10-15 minutes. The whole room is going to now be that, plus the windows, I was told, are now not even going to be able to be open. So I was just wondering how the ventilation in the room, and now that you're adding all the new lighting, it's going to create with that, and no windows open, tremendous heat when there's a lot of people in there on Shabbos.
Did you write that in your suggestion, observation?
No, I just thought of that as...
Do you have was there a question in there?
Well, the question is, it's like...
let me phrase it for you, because we didn't really deal with that.
I'm concerned that you're raising the actual air conditioning bills during the summer, and how is that helping us?
Okay. How is that helping us? We're currently using a dinosaur air conditioning system that dates back to the beginning of this building when it was put in the basement 50 years ago. The same ductwork, the same flow of air, that's what we have in now, and that's why it's unreliable. Talking about air conditioning isn't sexy, so we didn't include a slide on it, but in the design is a complete revamping of the mechanical system for the sanctuary and lobby with new units on the roof. We're going to be removing the cooling tower, the unsightly, noisy, leaks all the time. Well, don't leak, it's condensate. Cooling tower at the back of the shore. With a much more efficient system that will actually save us money, we think, over time. Part of what the mechanical engineer and the lighting consultant and the architectural team have looked at is what are the heat, what are the effects of the relationship of the additional heat because of the lighting versus the number of people, the time of year, and that sort of thing. I'm not a mechanical engineer. There's probably a very good reason why I'm not a mechanical engineer, but we trust in our mechanical engineer as well as our own in-house experts to advise us on that.
What we're going to do is, just in the interest of time, we're going to call the meeting. Thank you very, very much. We're then going to stay behind and respond either in this formation or informally to any questions that you will have as late as you want to go. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Yeah, hold it. Thank you very much. We have here a list of, dedication opportunities. We want you to take a look at it. If you want to fill out the form on the back, indicate interest, and drop it off in the basket outside, please do. So please, we're going to pass these out right now.